Hey friends, welcome back to Hot Air. I'm your host, Josh, and today we're going to get into something that has been on my mind for a while. And by a while, I mean my entire life, I think. Maybe because I catch myself doing this all the time, and I talk a lot about it in therapy. It's been a hot minute since I've done a therapy episode, and I thought it was kind of time, especially after all of the Halloween fun that we had. I don't want to jump right back into all of those crazy, scary, negative stories that I have been covering, from the news to legal battles for the LGBTQ plus community. So I thought I'd bring Hot Air back to its roots, which started because of my therapy journey. And I wanted to share the things that I was learning, and I have been, as we've been progressing and the podcast has been evolving. But this has been one of the biggest lessons out of, I think, all the big lessons I've learned with my new therapist. And it's something that I think we all exhibit at one point or another, and it can be applied to so many aspects of life. But before we get into that, make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. I have been shadow banned. I used to get hundreds to thousands of views on my videos, and now I'm getting 30 to 80. And that's not cool, because to me, I'm like, great, LGBTQ plus voices being silent. So follow, share the content, help me spread all of the things that I am trying to uplift, the voices I'm trying to share, the lessons I'm learning that I'm sharing with you, and the important stories that we should all be talking about. Also, there's some new merch on my website. I've got really cute stickers, Hot Air stickers, and I found your podcast to be egregious stickers. There's also tumblers. So, we've got cute mugs if you want to keep things warm. But if you want to take maybe some wine on a walk with you, or pour a White Claw in your tumbler, I also have these really cute black aluminum tumblers with the Hot Air logo, with the I found your podcast to be egregious on the other side, and slowly adding more little bits of merch here and there. So you can go and check those out. So let's talk about why we are actually here today. We are talking about black and white thinking, that all or nothing, love or hate, in or out kind of mindsets. You know exactly the one that I am talking about, because I know a lot about it. It's that little voice that says, like, if it's not perfect, it's pointless. Or if they messed up once, they're absolutely dead to me. Or even if I'm not thriving right now, I must be failing miserably. It's like so extreme, one end of the spectrum and the other. Yeah, all that stuff. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. So lately, I've been thinking a lot about how much of our stress, our anxiety, and self-criticism comes from that exact black and white thinking, that place, from feeling like we have to pick one side or the other, instead of just kind of existing somewhere in the middle and finding a happy middle ground where we can feel a little bit more peaceful. The older that I get, the more that I realize life is mostly lived in the in-between, which is not comfortable for me. I'll be straight up about it. It's not black, it's not white, it's not even 50 shades of gray, okay? Although that can be a little fun. It's more like a watercolor painting, constantly blending and bleeding into something brand new. But the problem is that our brains are not built for nuance. They like it simple. The brain wants it easy. It wants certainty. It wants clear edges. And that's basically what we're diving into today. The why behind this all or nothing mindset, and how we can start softening into that gray space, that middle ground, whether it's in our friendships, our families, our work, and with ourselves. There's a lot to cover, and this applies to basically every aspect of life. So let's hit it. Okay, I know I said let's hit it, but before we get into it, I am a little under the weather today. I'm exhausted. I think I'm depressed because Halloween's over. Even though I'm recording this before Halloween just to be ready, but I think my body knows that Halloween's gonna be over. So today I'm exhausted. So just, bear with me if I sound a little less energetic, but it might be nice for your ears that I'm not screaming. So let's start with part 1, why we think in extremes. So first things first, let's talk about why we even think this way. And there's actually a reason, which is not surprising. There's a reason for almost everything. Psychologists call it dichotomous thinking. It's this habit our brains develop as a shortcut for decision making. When we're little, it helps us make sense of the world around us. We learn that hot is bad, cold is good, right is right, and wrong is wrong. People are safe or they are not. That kind of clarity keeps us safe as kids. It always comes back to what we learn and what we're taught as children. But when we grow up, we never really update that system, the system that we have built within our brains. So instead of learning to tolerate nuance, we cling to absolute certainty because it feels like we're in control. It's safer to say, I hate my job, than to sit in the discomfort of, okay, my job is okay, but it drains me and I don't know what I want next. It's much easier just to say, fuck this place, as opposed to really considering why you feel that way. Black and white thinking gives us this illusion that we actually have control, but it's not control at all. It's mostly avoidance of discomfort, of not knowing, of living in that weird, messy gray area that most of adulthood actually lives in. And I can tell you, once you learn to live in that gray area, it's going to be a little uncomfy, but eventually it makes so much fucking sense. And I used to do this constantly. I'd go from, I'm obsessed with this, or I'm never doing that again, in about 3 seconds flat. I make these blanket statements that are just end all be all, whether it was friendships, projects, workouts, you name it, I've either black or whited it. It's like I had 2 speeds, 100 miles an hour, or in a coma. And people that know me personally know that this is a fact. And if I was not all in, I felt like I was failing. And if I wasn't all in, I was also just like, nah, hate it. But what I've realized is that black and white thinking is really just a form of anxiety that is wearing a more confident outfit. It looks decisive, but underneath, it's fear. And fear of not being enough, or not knowing enough, or not being in control. It is just fear. Living in the gray requires a lot of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in others, trust in the process of growth and change, and trust takes a lot of practice. Part 2, friendships, the love-hate roller coaster. Let's begin some of these examples with friendships because, Lord, give me strength. This is where I used to have a friggin' degree in black and white thinking, and quite frankly, I still do. I catch myself doing this all the time. I used to be the kind of friend who either adored you, like you're my person, you're my soulmate, you're my bestie, you're like my emotional twin flame, or I had you mentally exiled to another dimension, somewhere far, far away. There was no, like, we're cool, just not as close right now. It had to be like, we're besties, we rely on each other, we have each other's back. And if anybody swayed away from that, I was like, oh, you don't got me. No more from you. And if someone disappointed me or slightly betrayed me, like even in the smallest bit, I would feel physically like this huge internal shift, like trust is broken, bridge is burned, heart has iced over. And I've learned to live with that heart of ice for a long time. And sometimes in these situations, it's justified. It just takes a matter of thinking, like, does this person deserve my friendship? Are they giving me what I'm giving them? Or is this just a little hiccup along the way? So look, some of that black and white thinking was also coming from a place of protecting myself. When you've been hurt before, your brain says, we're not doing that again. And we have all been hurt before. There's not a human on the planet that has not. So you start putting people into boxes. They're safe or unsafe. They're loyal or fake. You love them or you hate them. And people are not boxes. It would be great if they were. They're books. They're messy. They're evolving, sometimes so fucking frustrating. And sometimes they're the best people on the planet. And the thing about gray thinking is that it lets you keep reading even when a chapter of that person's book gets uncomfortable. So I had a friend a few years back. We were very, very close, But then life just shifted. She got busier. I got weirdly sensitive about it. And instead of talking it through, I just kind of shut down. And in my head, it was over. No friendship anymore. Like the connection was lost. I decided she did not care. And I let that story loop until it became fact. Months later, we reconnected and we talked about it a little bit. And it turned out that she was going through her own stuff, family issues, burnout from work, things she didn't feel like dumping on anyone else. And she really just needed to step back and take care of herself. She was not ghosting me. She was surviving. And while I felt like she wasn't prioritizing me, she was surviving and prioritizing herself. And sometimes that is okay. Now, on the other hand of that, I've also had a friend many, many years ago who is no longer a friend. We did not patch those things up because I saw a side of her that I did not love. And there were other people involved in this situation. We were really close. We hung out all the time. We did so much stuff together. And we went away to Palm Springs with our other friend and another acquaintance. And her personality completely changed. She was rude to us. She was talking down to us. She could have cared less. And once I see that side of you, it makes me question whether I even know who you are at all. And because I don't feel bad about kind of exiling that friend, I think that's a circumstance in which black and white thinking kind of came into handy. But maybe I did live in the gray area because I thought about it. I let myself consider these changes that I saw, but then I decided that that friendship was not good for me. And I didn't want to talk it out. And sometimes you don't have to if you don't want to. So moments like that changed how I see friendship, because the truth is that people are rarely all good or all bad. Sometimes they just don't have capacity. Sometimes we don't have capacity. Sometimes things are just a little bit off, but it doesn't mean that they are broken. And the gray area in friendship says, I can love you and need space. I can miss who we were and accept who we are now. I can be disappointed and I can still care. And then you decide if that's going to work for you in the long run and if that's the kind of friendship you want to move forward with in life. That is emotional maturity and honesty, and it brings a lot of peace to the situation. And sometimes you're the one who needs to reset. You're the one who needs to step away. And maybe you're kind of pushing everyone away for a little bit. I'm currently in that space. I've exiled almost everyone so that I can just really think through some things and live in that gray area and figure out where I want to place people moving forward. Not in boxes, but where I'm going to put their friendships and relationships. Part 3, family, redefining connection. Everyone's favorite emotional obstacle course. Up until very recently, I was like, my family's perfect. We all can do no wrong. We all get along. And then we all became adults and I started speaking up and things happen. And that's life, right? You can still love them, but need some time from them. Family brings out some of the deepest black and white patterns because we grew up with them. We grew up in those black and white patterns and being taught them. We learned early who was the good one, who was the difficult one, who we had to keep up with. Those labels stick even when we grow up. And again, everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm the really hot, cool, really fashionable one, and everyone had to keep up with me. I'm kidding, but not really. Oh God, should I delete that? No. And because family relationships are so emotionally charged, we often swing between extremes. Either we're the dutiful child who tolerates absolutely everything, or we're the scorched earth rebel who cuts everyone off. Well, that is me currently. And I'm okay with it. Not forever, but I'm okay with it for now. Shout out if any family's listening. Don't worry, I'm coming around. Both extremes come from trying to protect ourselves. One through overconnection and the other through distance. Same all or nothing thing. We're either really close or you don't get me at all. So the gray is where we can find the balance. It's where you can say, I love my mom, but I can only handle short visits. Or I want a relationship with my dad, but I can't have certain conversations with him. Or even, I love my family, but I feel more like myself with my chosen family. And truthfully, that's something I've really struggled with. I don't want to just feel like, I can only spend a few days with my mom because I get overwhelmed or irritated. I want to be the person who can spend all the time on the planet with their mom. But is that realistic? I want to be able to have every and any conversation with my dad. But is he comfortable with any and every conversation? Honestly, he would listen to me talk about anything and everything. But what I'm saying here is that all of those relationships are different. You can't just say that I want to be able to spend all the time in the world with every single person I'm related with without getting irritated at all. I want to be able to say anything that's on my mind, and I want to feel so comfortable and loved and that everyone gets me all at the exact same level, because reality is, and this is something that's really hard for me, reality is that everyone else is in their own reality and they're their own person with their own beliefs and their own systems. And to expect everyone to treat you the same is insanity. And to expect everyone to understand what you're sharing with them and to accept it and to ask the right questions and provide the right type of support is, again, it's insanity. It's lunacy. That's a word, right? Lunacy. So just like we change as individuals, think about how everyone else around you might be evolving and changing too. Because the person I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is not who I am now. And I would imagine that's the same for my sisters and my parents and friends I grew up with and friends I have relatively recent relationships with. Now, in a nutshell, those types of feelings don't make you ungrateful. It makes you aware. And like I said, I used to think that family relationships had to all look the same. Like if I was close with one sibling, I should be equally close with the others. But people are different. Relationships can be tailored. You have hobbies and things in common with some that you don't with others. One might be deep and emotional. The other might be light and friendly. Another almost non-existent. And all of that can still be healthy. I have one sister that I very rarely speak to. Do I love her? Yes. And when we do chat, it's a great time. When I see her, it's wonderful, but we don't text all the time. I have another sister that I text almost every single day, so it varies. Therapists talk about something called differentiation. It's the ability to be close to people while still staying true to yourself. That's the gray zone in family. You don't lose yourself trying to please, but you also don't wall yourself off to stay safe. Me, currently walled off. It's not easy, but it's freeing. And sometimes the healthiest family boundary that you can set isn't cutting someone out, it's changing how you relate, which is essentially rewiring your brain and learning how to have a new relationship in a whole new way. Part 4, work, passions, and the pressure to be all in. Let's move on to some work scenarios, hobbies, passions, because this is another place where black and white thinking ruins all the fun and it runs amok. We live in this culture that worships extremes. You are either crushing it, bro. I heard people talk like that at the gym the other day. It was killing me. It was like, what's up, bro? I'm crushing it, bro. It was like they talk like they're memes. It cracked me up. So you're either crushing it or you're burnt out. You're living your dream or you're stuck in a dead end job. And quite frankly, a lot of people that are living the dream are just trying to overcompensate for, well, maybe not liking their job or not being that happy. It's like pushing a narrative that might not be that true. So don't always believe everything you see. But these extremes in thinking don't leave a lot of room for, yeah, it's fine for now. Everything's okay. It's fine, which is the gray area. But life has seasons. You can have a job that pays the bills while you slowly build the one that feeds your soul. You can have a passion that you absolutely love and also need a break from. So, for example, I have a job that pays the bills and feeds my needs. I can take trips. I get paid pretty well for what I do, but it's not something that I want to do forever. And it's not my end all be all. I also have this podcast that I make zero money from that I hope to continue to grow, but I'm passionate about it. I also am a painter. Last year, I did a bunch of shows. I had my first solo art show. I have not painted in a year. I haven't felt inspired, and I don't feel bad about it. I did feel bad about it maybe 6 months ago, but I started to realize I don't need to feel bad about it. I have a shitload of paintings sitting in my garage. When I'm inspired and the mood strikes, I can get back to it. So that is me working on my black and white thinking. So you can have a passion that you also need a break from. Now, I used to think that if I wasn't totally consumed by something, it meant I did not care enough. And I do kind of feel that way still a little bit. Like if I wasn't painting every single day, I wasn't a real artist. I wasn't really in it to win it. If I wasn't posting travel content nonstop, I wasn't serious about it when I was trying to have a gay travel Instagram. But that is not necessarily true. That's perfectionism disguised as passion. Gray thinking says it's okay to rest, to pivot, to enjoy things in moderation. You can love your art. You can paint all day, every day without monetizing it. You can love your job without making it your entire identity because you're so much more than your job. You can explore something new without declaring it your life's purpose. And anyone who knows me also knows that I have a gazillion hobbies. I'm always trying new things, and I tend to dive right in and then I dive right out, and then I'll dabble a little bit here and there. But I am living in the gray area in terms of always experimenting with what I care about, my passions, my gigs, my jobs, and nothing fully takes over unless I feel inspired. So beyond that, there's this idea that to succeed, you have to go all in. But sometimes the healthiest thing that you can do is stay curious instead of 120% committed, because not everything needs to be forever. Some things can just be for now. And I always like to say, of all the hobbies I've had in the world, musical production, learning how to DJ, taught myself graphic design, Photoshop, Premiere Pro. I studied film for 2 years. I used to write music. I traveled the world dancing. I worked in production on cruise ships. I did so many things, and I always am like, why did none of these really take off? Why didn't I just blow up? And then I look at where I am now, and I'm using all of the skills that I have learned along the way to produce this podcast. And maybe this is a stepping stone. Maybe this will go away one day too. But you can always take a little lesson from every little hobby or passion if it isn't absolutely forever. Because it doesn't have to be forever. It can just be for right now. Part 5, the gray within, how we see ourselves. Let's talk about how we treat ourselves, how we see ourselves. Because black and white thinking doesn't just affect our relationships, it runs deep inside our self-talk. We say things all the time like, I'm doing great, or I'm a mess, or I'm confident, or I hate myself. And we forget that it's possible to kind of feel both, which is the gray area. When I drop a plate, I'm like, oh, you fucking idiot. I get so angry with myself. And then other days when I'm feeling good, I look in the mirror, I'm like, you are a bad bitch. You look good today, girl. Get it. It's so extreme. You can be healing and you can still be hurting. You can be self-aware and you can still screw up. You can be proud of how far you have come and still want change. Therapists call this dialectical thinking, holding two truths at once. It's a skill, but it's one that brings a hell of a lot of peace. When you start saying things like, I feel anxious, but I'm still safe, or I'm unsure, but I'm still capable, you start to loosen that mental grip that says you have to pick a side. I used to think that personal growth meant having everything figured out, like some Final Destination, not the horror movie, but like some Final Destination where you're enlightened and grounded and absolutely unbothered and everything's hunky-dory. But real growth is learning to tolerate that in-between stuff. The days where you're both calm and chaotic, confident and confused. The gray is where compassion lives. It's where you stop punishing yourself for just being human. Now, I want to take a little bit of a detour, but only like a tiny baby one, because I feel like this next little piece of gold, this gold nugget, can be applied to almost every aspect of life, including the relationship types that we just talked about and your relationship with yourself, as well as black and white thinking that we just covered in depth. I recently dove into the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, and one thing that hit me like a lightning bolt was, friendships don't die because someone did me wrong. They shift because one or more of the 3 pillars of friendship have moved. Those 3 pillars are proximity, timing, and energy. And listen closely, because I can guarantee you can think about some friendships that you have and think about these 3 pillars, and you'll be able to identify why you got closer or why you grew apart. And this concept gave me so much relief. It actually has helped a lot as I've been growing away from people. Because when I used to feel left out or ghosted or rejected, my brain immediately assumed like they don't like me anymore. They don't want to spend time with me. They must be upset with me. I must have done something wrong. But maybe Maybe the pillars just changed. Maybe life changed. Maybe the chemistry shifted. So we're going to unpack that, tell you some stories, dig into the why. And we're going to walk together hand in hand like little cuties through how to let friendship go or how to allow it to evolve and be more intentional about the ones that you keep. And again, this can be applied, in my opinion, to every aspect of your life. But we're just going to focus on the friendship part. So before we go deep, let's briefly define what let them means. If you haven't read the book, Mel Robbins describes let them as simply giving permission, letting people live their lives, letting people change, letting people go quiet, letting people not invite you, letting people come back, etc., etc. Just letting people do. Let them do it. It doesn't mean that you ignore your needs. That's where the companion, let me, comes in. You focus on what you can control, reaching out, caring, setting boundaries, healing. Let them and let me is a nice little dance. And one of the biggest shifts for me was realizing I try to force a friendship that's missing one of those pillars. I only exhaust myself when I do that, and it doesn't feel good. Let them gave me the permission to stop trying to twist into someone else's life and make myself fit into their narrative and into their life experience. And instead, I could channel that energy into who's in rhythm with me. So let's talk the three pillars: proximity, timing, and energy. We'll go one by one because they're deceptively simple, yet very profound. So, proximity. This is about physical closeness. It's not just distance in miles, it's opportunity. Mel Robbins points out that in earlier stages of life, proximity was built in school, when you go to college and you're in a dorm, in your jobs. But as adults, we're scattered. We move, we change jobs, we work remotely, a lot of us now. All of this reduces that proximity to people. It's not that you're lethargic for your friend. You literally don't see them as much. So you lose the casual moments that build that connection. So a little personal story here. When I worked on the cruise ships, I was very close with one of my roommates. Her name was Becky. She's such a wonderful human. And we shared a cabin together. We would go to rehearsals together. We would eat together. We would go on tours, wherever country we were in. We were like inseparable. And when we left the cruise ship, we kept up with each other for a little bit. We tried to keep things going, texting, little FaceTimes, trying to plan visits that never happened. But slowly, that distance starts to creep in. It wasn't because we didn't like each other anymore. It was just the absence of seeing each other so much and having that physical connection almost on a daily basis. So that just taught me that distance is really just a barrier, but it's not a verdict, because we still message every once in a while, wish her happy birthday. I'll comment on her Instagram and vice versa. But she lives in England. I live here. That's a whole ass ocean. Obviously, we're not going to be as close as we once were. Now, pillar number 2 is timing. And timing isn't how many hours you spend together. It's what season of life that you're in. It's your priorities, your schedules, emotional bandwidth, responsibilities. Mel Robbins says that you can love someone and you can still not be in the same season. Your lives could diverge. One friend is in a baby season. I know a few that are. Another's building a business. Another's dealing with burnout. Another is going through divorce. The overlap becomes slimmer and slimmer. A good example is one of my friendships where we were both in our 20s. We were free, no kids, open schedules. We were spontaneous. And fast forward a few years, she has a kid, a career shift, longer hours. I'm doing creative projects. I'm traveling. My hours are whatever I want them to be, essentially. I'm single. They are not. The overlap of time and intention got very, very narrow. And I found myself feeling resentful and thinking like, why don't we text anymore? Like, what the hell happened here? But after working in this gray area, I now see that we're just in different seasons. I can still care about them deeply, but I can't demand that their season matches mine. I don't want kids, not a priority. I don't want to work 9 to 5 every single day. I don't want to go to rock concerts on the weekends and get shit-faced. So our seasons are just different. And pillar number 3 is energy. Energy is the intangible vibe between two people. It's emotional resonance, it's chemistry, it's how safe you feel around someone. You could be physically close and share timing, but if energy is off, the friendship dies. And who hasn't experienced that when you're just like, oh, we could hang out all the time, but I'm just not vibing with you, right? Mel Robbins says that energy doesn't lie. So don't misunderstand though. Energy shifts aren't always negative. They are signals. Sometimes we outgrow or evolve and our emotional alignments just shift. I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day in which I kind of said that once upon a time, I met someone who on paper was pretty much everything I wanted. Similar values, similar hobbies, same city. We planned to hang out. We had deep conversations initially, but something felt flat. It wasn't wrong or anything. It just like wasn't right. You know, when you just feel the vibe is off. And I tried forcing it, more texts. I tried to, we hung out a little bit more, but that spark was just lacking. And eventually that faded because you cannot force the energy. And that taught me that even if everything seems right, if energy is off, you will know it. And trying to force chemistry is so exhausting and it's absolutely pointless. My mom will always be like, well, you know, you can't just judge it by a first date. You got to like go out on a few. Like, I didn't like your stepdad at first, but then after he went on a few dates, I started to like him a little bit more. And I do believe that that happens. You get to know someone and their personality takes a hold and you could fall absolutely head over heels with someone. But I do think that if you go on a second date with someone, there's a little something there. You're curious enough to go. So you know when that energy is lacking, or you know if you're curious enough to explore it a little more. Now, I've stopped counting these parts, these segments, so I don't even know what part 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 this is now, but we're moving on to a slightly different segment, which is why do we cling? The shadow behind letting go. We're going to get deep again. I love getting deep. Why do we cling to friendships that are shifting or absolutely fading and that we know we might need to get over and move on from for a little bit? Why does it feel like a betrayal when somebody drifts? Well, the fear of rejection and self-worth. One part of us says, if they're not here, it means I'm not lovable. We internalize their drift as basically as judgment on us. There's narrative and control. We create these stories like they stopped texting me because they don't value me. We want a clear villain. We want a reason rather than accepting that friendships can be fluid. There's memory and nostalgia. We remember the best parts. Of course, we always remember the best parts. We don't always recall the fights, the distance, the drift, the times when these people really pissed us off. So when someone fades, we think only of what we miss, not what changed, just like in romantic relationships. Therapists often talk about attachment wounds, how early experiences teach us to hold on to relationships beyond reason. Letting go or loosening grip can feel very scary and very unsafe. So the let them theory is pretty radical. It says, I don't have to wreck myself trying to control your presence in order to validate my worth. Part 756. How to practice let them in friendships. Here's what it might look like in real friendships, in real life. Some grounded perspectives that you can maybe play with. So first, notice when a pillar shifts. Is it proximity? Is it timing? Is it energy? If yes, pause before blaming and ask yourself, which pillar is weakening before you go off the deep end and you get mad? What's happening here? And then next, don't punish, just taper gently. You don't have to ghost or burn bridges. Let your presence just soften. Maybe reach out less, let the rhythm shift naturally, and just kind of gauge what's happening before you, again, make any rash decisions. Then, re-engage if the resonance returns. Let them doesn't mean never reach out again. If energy, timing, or proximity lines up again, you can reconnect. Some friendships snap back just like rubber bands. Then, cultivate new closeness. If you feel lonely in the gaps, lean into the let me part. Be the person who invites, who initiates, who builds community around you. But make sure you are not the only one who is doing the initiating. and the inviting and trying to encourage those friendships. Friendship should be a two-way street. Then check in with your boundaries and get some clarity. Sometimes let them means you verbalize, right? You say, hey, I miss us. I see things have changed. If you ever want space, I get it. I'll be there. We can talk it through. And then be compassionate with yourself. You might feel grief, and that is okay. Friendships, especially deep ones, deserve a little bit of mourning, but it doesn't have to be a shameful experience. You just might not be in the same season. So I want to share just a few more little stories with you because I want this to feel like we're just like hanging out on the couch, we're just sharing stories. That is actually what I really love in friendship. And that's one of the things that is not negotiable for me, but I like to talk about really important, deep things. And when people come with me with very surface level stuff, whether it's family or friends, I just can't hang. I can't do the small talk. Like, I want to be the one who's like, it's almost 2026. What goals do you have that you want to accomplish in 2025 for the rest of the year? Or what are your New Year's resolutions? And people are always like, I don't like New Year's resolutions. I'm like, oh, so you don't like having goals? Like, what? But anyway, little story number one. So I once had a group chat with 5 friends. I hate group chats, but I did it. We all posted memes, we made plans, we joked nonstop, and then life gets busy. The chat slowed down. I would send little messages, but they often went unread or unresponded to. I'd check in more, and then eventually I just stopped. And for a while, I replayed like, why don't they care? Why aren't they responding? But then I realized that proximity faded, timing diverged, and the energy shifted, and it was not personal. We lived far apart from each other. We grew apart. We had different things happening in lives, children, marriages. So like, people were busy. And just because they weren't responding didn't mean they didn't fucking care for me. There was another time that I invited somebody to brunch. They declined twice. I felt the sting, as we do. My brain went to worst case scenario. They don't like me. They hate me. They don't want to talk to me. But then I paused and asked, is their timing off? Are they exhausted? Did something else shift? I decided to let them off the hook, to not overthink it. I didn't cancel me. I still went to brunch with others, but I let the expectation that maybe they would join me one day, maybe they would spend time with me. I just let that fade. Perhaps another time, not likely, but you get what I'm saying here. I also have another friend, Jessica. Shout out Jessica. She did my first episode with me about allyship, and then the allyship follow-up, which I don't remember what episode that was. I want to say like 8 or something like that, but she's preggers right now. She's very pregnant. And she keeps being like, why don't you mention me on the podcast? You don't talk about me. So bitch, I'm mentioning you. Okay. Hello. How are you? How's your dog? How's your baby? Who's still inside of you? But anyway, Jessica and I have known each other since high school. We know I was going to say just about everything, but we know literally everything about each other, and we are extremely close. But there are times in life when the energy shifts and when the timing is different and the proximity is different. And we have kind of come to learn, I think. I mean, you can't answer my question, Jessica, if you're listening, but I think you would agree that we've learned that ebb and flow is a part of our friendship. There's times when we haven't talked for a year because of basically just not being on the same page in life. Nobody was in the right or the wrong. It was just one of those things. And right now she's pregnant and she is on bed rest. And so we were not talking as much because I was just letting her, do her pregnancy. I was letting her do the beginning of motherhood, right? And letting her process all of that and sort out what that was going to look like for her. And now that she's feeling better and doesn't have as much morning sickness and all of that stuff, we're chatting a little bit more. So it is okay. And was there some guilt in there? Did it feel weird? Did it feel disconnected? Did I feel like, oh, I feel bad because like, am I abandoning my best friend during her pregnancy when I should be there supporting her? But it was just one of those things where we were on, again, very different pages. I am a man. I am not pregnant. I am not having a child. Therefore, she was connecting probably with her friends that are mothers and that can relate to those things and help her through that process, because I would have been no help whatsoever because I don't know nothing about being a pregnant woman. But anyway, the ebb and flow is okay. And there's some friendships that just work like that. And we will we will be friends until the day that we die, maybe living on a farm in Ireland somewhere, just high as a kite. But okay, so this thought process is basically like you and your friend are 2 Wi-Fi routers that once you were in sync, you were connected, and then one gets moved behind a thick wall or to a different room. So you're still trying to connect, but the signal is getting weaker and weaker and weaker as you're moved around. And it's not that the router changed, it's that the geography did. So don't beat the router, just move closer or upgrade your system. There was also another friend that I thought that I had lost like for forever. And years later, we reconnected. And it was like no time has passed. I think we've all experienced that in one way or another. The energy just clicks again. But interestingly, we never went back to how things were, spending as much time together. The new version of our friendship was lighter, it was more flexible, and that too is okay. That moment convinced me that letting friendships die doesn't always mean it's a permanent death. Maybe they're just taking a little nap. Sometimes they're hibernating. Now, as I said, all of this, the let them theory and these pillars, I feel like can be applied to all your other relationships and parts of your life. So while we've been focusing on friendship, these ideas translate elsewhere. Romantic relationships, family, work relationships, the pillars shift there too. Physical/emotional proximity, life seasons, alignment, and sometimes letting go or yielding is the healthiest move. If you try to force energy or timing in a romantic partnership that's over, you burn yourself. You get fucking screwed. We know that doesn't work. If you expect a sibling to always match your pace, you're going to exhaust yourself. So the let them theory mixed with let me is really just a lens. Use it not as an excuse to abandon, but as a guideline. Which parts can I release? Which parts can I mend? And when can I rest? So here is the thing. The thing from all of this. Black and white thinking, it feels safe. But it's not really safety, right? It's control. And control does not give you peace. It's just going to give you attention dressed up as certainty, while you will secretly remain unfucking certain. When we let ourselves live in the gray, we open up room for nuance, for forgiveness, for joy that doesn't depend on perfection. Life is not meant to be one side or the other. It's the space in between, the messy, complicated, beautiful middle ground. And just because I'm sharing this with you does not mean I've mastered it. I have not mastered it at all, not even close, but it's something I'm working on, which means you can work on it too. I don't claim to be an expert at living in the gray. I'm certainly not. Every Tuesday at 3:30 when I go to my therapist, there's something that comes up where I go, oh, fuck. It's black and white thinking again, isn't it? I'm so extreme with this. It's either hell yeah or hell no, or love it or hate it. I'm still working through it. And just doing this episode is a good reminder for me and hopefully a good reminder for you. So if you're in a season of change or confusion or just figuring it the fuck out, you are not failing. You're just living in the gray. And that is exactly where you're supposed to be. So thank you for listening to this episode of Hot Air. Again, I am Josh. And if today's episode hit home, take a second to breathe. Let yourself be somewhere in the middle. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to. You never will be. You just have to stay open and flexible. And I'm going to meet you right here on Friday, floating somewhere between black and white and all the beautiful shades of gray/watercolor in between. So catch the next episode of Hot Air on Friday, which my outro never really makes sense now because I have 2 episodes a week, but I will see you next Tuesday.